Good afternoon, and welcome back to another edition of the Mayor's press conference. And happy Friday. Friday for a change. It's a Friday as opposed to a Wednesday, which is really kind of nice. So happy Friday. It's about 64 degrees outside and gorgeous. And once again, why you're listening to me is beyond me. I would be outside enjoying this gorgeous fall weather. And supposed to be very pleasant this weekend too. And just as a side note to this weekend, Ohio University is going to be playing Eastern Michigan. So there will be a home game, and hopefully you can get out and enjoy that as well. A number of items under Engineering and Public Works. The City of Athens announces a water outage for all of Townsend and portions of Eden Place, Pleasant View, Jacobs, and Dalton. It was a scheduled outage for Dalton to remove an old water line and to begin the replacement of it. But after getting into it, there was a shutoff valve that failed, resulting in this larger water outage and a boil order. There will be a boil order once that work is completed and the water is turned back on to those lines. The Columbus Road Bike Path Spur is the bridge, the ironwork for the bridge, the steel superstructure is here and is currently being assembled as we speak out off of Columbus Road. So that work is going to be continuing on throughout next week and possibly next week to actually have the bridge lifting and installation. But at this point, it's putting together the separate pieces. The 2016 Waterline Improvements Project, again, as I mentioned with the boil order or the water shut off in the Far East neighborhood, that work will continue on Grand Park in the Dalton area, but again, unfortunately, with that valve failure, much more extensive water line shut off to that particular corridor. Franklin Avenue infrastructure improvements, still some AEP work taking place out in that area, so just be aware of that as well. That pretty much wraps up the items that I have for engineering and public works. I wanted to share this with everyone who's tuned in today. There was a survey that went out to anyone who wanted to take it, and the survey was for the Highland Park playground equipment, the replacement equipment, which is coming from funding that's come from the Arts, Parks, and Recreation Levy, as well as a Kaboom, Dr. Pepper Snapple Kaboom grant, which was $15,000. There was a Survey Monkey that went out to families with children, for the children to actually give some input, which I think is a really wise way to kind of do things. Those who most use the equipment should have a say, right, in what equipment they wanted. They were given choices for some playground features, as well as the overall look and colors for the playground equipment that's going to be going in. The colors they landed on was kind of a denim blue and yellow combination. So for any of you who are WVU fans, woohoo, for University of West Virginia, because that is their city colors. This is an image, if I can get Ryan or Kat to zoom in on this. This is the kind of give you a sense as to what the playground equipment in general will look like, or the main feature of the playground. Kids were given options between some various features. The ones they landed on in terms of additional features that'll be going in, there's this swing feature, which is an ADA swing, by the way, to where you can get an individual who may need a wheelchair to get around to be able to sit inside this, or you can just get, as the image shows, you can get 4 or 5 of your best friends to jump on this thing and swing back and forth. The other feature that those who went on the Survey Monkeys landed on was another separate uh, installation feature, which is kind of a merry-go-round type of playground feature, or again, you get multiple people inside. This too is an ADA accessible park feature because of the walls, the side walls around it, to where as you're spinning around, you don't go flinging off like the old school merry-go-rounds. So this is really, again, I think is a real interesting process to go through, to where even for playground equipment, you get more buy-in from not only adults with children, but the children themselves. I have to give a lot of credit to the Kaboom process. That was one of the elements, but I also want to acknowledge Andrew Chicky, who has really been kind of our Athens liaison to make this all happen as well. That's pretty much it for today. For the items that I've got, I do have a reporter from the Post here today who likely has some questions for me.
All right. Yeah, I'm Bennett Leckron from the Post, and we've got several questions today. The first have to do with the accessibility rating system. Why has the accessibility rating system not been implemented yet, and do you know when that might be?
That's a good question for the Commission on Disabilities. The Commission on Disabilities, I know, has been working on a accessibility rating system, and as I understand it, they will be using that rating system to assess different merchants up and down Court Street, but I think throughout the city, to see how accessible they are. The Commission on Disabilities will be meeting this coming Wednesday. I'll be at that meeting to be briefed more thoroughly on where things stand with that process, but that's going to be a major undertaking by the Commission on Disabilities. So it's not that it hasn't been implemented yet. I think the Commission, and it's a Commission effort, by the way. It's not mandated by myself or anyone in my office, but the Commission is looking into it and will be the ones launching that process.
All right. Are there any aspects of the systems that have been completed to this point, and what are some specific details of the system that have been agreed upon as of now?
Again, I mean, it's a great question. I don't have an answer at my fingertips for you right now. What I can say is that one of the commission members, Noah Tremblay, has spent a lot of time last year doing a sidewalk assessment throughout the city. The city often assesses the sidewalks, you know, every year they'll go around and look at sidewalks that are in need of repair, but it's coming through the lens of individuals who are able-bodied, who don't live with disabilities. So the commission decided to also assess some of the city sidewalks, and I know that has been put together. A lot that had been identified was fed up through Engineering and Public Works, and those were sidewalks that did receive attention this past year. So there was a number of streets. North Congress sidewalks were repaired. I know that South May sidewalks were repaired, and I think Central Avenue, some sidewalks along Central Avenue were also repaired to where they didn't have large heaves in them or anything that could become basically a barrier for those with accessibility issues. It has been already kind of gotten out there in the press, but the Sells Park access ramp was something too that kind of came up through the Commission on Disabilities. But what you're referring to with this program of looking at accessibility in some of the retail stores, again, has not been launched yet. But I think they might be piloting by looking at a couple of the businesses now, but there'll be a lot more to come on that.
How has the response been from those businesses?
That I don't know. You know, I think that once a business realizes that there may be accessibility issues with their store that, that I'm sure they'll make changes, or I'm hopeful that they'll make changes to improve their accessibility, or at least make some adaptations to where they can be accessible. An example would be that, you know, if it's a eat-in or carry-out restaurant, but it's, you know, it's physically impossible from a structural standpoint at this time, because it being an old building, that they can come up with other ways of providing their services, possibly having tables out front. And that's only going to be helpful in decent weather days, right? It won't be of much help during the winter. But the other thing is that hopefully they'll make some accommodations to where they someone can call in an order, and that they could bring it out to them as they come by.
All right. So, in creating this system, has the city looked towards other towns or cities that have similar ones in place?
You know, again, another good question, but a Commission on Disabilities question.
Yeah.
Knowing the Commission on Disabilities, I wouldn't be surprised if they have looked out and reached out to other cities. I know that there have been a number of cities that have in the past reached out to the city of Athens when it came to things like proper accessible parking space ordinances and how we went about doing things, as well as some other elements in the city. So not to say that we're a model, but, you know, I think there's some practices that we've instituted that other cities are kind of interested in exploring with us. Loveland in Ohio was one such city to where I had many conversations about accessible parking spaces, as well as one of the things that we did in the city. This was probably in 2014, to where we changed the way we reference someone living with a disability, to where code used to use the term handicap everywhere in code, and that has been removed from our code of ordinances, and substituted with disabilities, where handicap used to be there.
All right. Moving on to a different topic. 47% of Athens County households without a car live in communities not covered by the Athens Transit bus system. Is the city aware of this? What are your thoughts? And is there any work on council or in legislation for expanding the coverage of the transit system, or providing those outside of the system with means of transportation?
Yes.
All right.
I am very much aware that the Athens Public Transit, it services the city of Athens. It also has a bus line that goes to Chansey, and then through the Plains, and then back to Athens again. So there is a bus route that has been enhanced in the past years. That enhancement was piloted, I want to say in 2014, 2015, somewhere in that time frame, and then it was very successful to go beyond the city limits out to Chansey, and to where now it's a permanent bus route. I have been in conversations, have had conversations with Michael Lockman, who's the director for Athens Public Transit, about the possibility of having a regular scheduled bus service that goes from the city of Athens to Nelsonville. And I've spoken to the city manager of Nelsonville, Gary Edwards, as well as other individuals, but Michael Lockman, Gary Edwards, and I sat down at length and spoke about the possibility of making this happen. So it's being looked at seriously, to see if we can make this occur. And at this point, Michael Lockman looked at the possibility of having that bus route on an hourly basis to where there's 2 buses on that service that are offset by a half-hour route, to where on the hour people could be picked up and shuttled from Nelsonville to Athens. So, you know, one of the reasons is that there is a new clinic, urgent care clinic in Nelsonville. Ohio Health has just opened a clinic there. it's an urgent care clinic, and it has a number of resources there, but an individual may need further care at Oblenus Hospital or at Holzer Clinic. And so therefore, the bus would really service those individuals. It would be great for jobs. It would be great for students who want to transfer or take particular classes at Ohio University or at Hawking College, to be able to hop a bus that is on a regular hourly schedule so they can kind of figure that into their day to commute back and forth. And finally, Nelsonville Music Festival, Ohio Brew Week. I mean, there's a number of things that go on within our two cities, and a lot of people wanting to really enjoy those events can decide, it's easier to hop on the bus and ride there, especially if you're going to be, drinking at any of those events. It makes for a great alternative to be able to commute back and forth for Final Fridays of Nelsonville, or like I said, or Ohio Brew Week, anything. Nelsonville Music Festival is a rather large event, and someone may want to stay at a hotel in the city of Athens rather than camping out there, and can hop this bus from the hotel here and ride out to Nelsonville to enjoy the music and then head back again. It's a start. We even explored, in thinking about this, the opportunity to make that same bus line not only go to from Nelsonville to Athens, but go all the way on, continue to Albany, and pick up riders in Albany. And so, really kind of connecting those dots. My pie in the sky idea is that someday, as the Athens Public Transit grows, to run up the 13 corridor up to Jacksonville, Trimble, Gloucester area, and have it go that far and then come back down into Athens again. So there is some plans, and you raise a great point, and that is that there are a large number of people who may be lacking in transportation, and bus service, Athens Public Transit bus service would be great. There is the GO Bus, but the GO Bus has limited stops within Athens County. As I understand it, it will pick individuals. You can hop on it in Athens and ride it to Nelsonville for $5. But I think that's probably one of the few stops within the county that it makes as it's heading up to Columbus.
All right. And then lastly, could you just give a general update on the Columbus Road Bridge construction and just like the hopes with that whole project of what it will kind of accomplish for the city?
Yeah, the bridge itself for this, bike path spur, off of the bike path itself, it's just past mile marker 5 as you're heading towards Eclipse or Nelsonville. And the embankments are there on that side. The embankment was completed on the north side of the river as well, which is back behind the Laurels off Columbus Road. The bike path surface isn't installed yet. That'll come likely next spring because we're quickly heading into that time of the season when the asphalt plants start shutting down and not producing because it's getting too cold. The superstructure for the bridge itself started arriving yesterday and the day before. The crane came in late last week. There's 2 cranes to raise that steel structure, and what they're doing right now, I actually went down and observed them unloading one of the sections of the steel work for the bridge. They're currently assembling the pieces together, and then they'll use the 2 cranes and hoist the entire suspension bridge. It's not a suspension bridge, but the entire bridge. They'll lift it up from the ground and place it onto the footers in the ramps going up to the bridge itself. So that's underway. The actual, when the bridge actually goes up and is installed, I'm not sure. It could be happening as we speak, for all I know. But likely next week is when it'll be hoisted into place. But it's exciting, because what this bridge, or what the bridge will do, what this spur will do, is essentially create a loop to where someone, say you're starting from the bike path at near the Hocking River Bridge, Richland Avenue Bridge, and you can hop on the bike path, ride all the way out to the new spur, cross over the Hocking River across the spur, and then keep riding till you get to Columbus Road, and then take a right and start riding up the bike lane on Columbus Road up to the top, and you could literally loop right back around and head back down to Richland Avenue again, and just continue to do this nice loop around. So it's going to make a nice addition to an already wonderful bike path that we have, which is 22 miles long. So this just creates another element for our rideability on a bicycle in the city of Athens. So, like I said, it's a great feature. It's not cheap either. We're talking, you know, a couple $1 million for this particular project to include the bridge. But but you know, at the end of the day, we're talking enhancing quality of life for people living in the city of Athens.
All right, well, that's all I have today. Thank you.
You're welcome. And thank you to everyone who's here today, tuning in. We'll probably go back to our normal viewing time next Wednesday, and if not, we will let you know. Other than that, have a great, wonderful weekend. Get out to the pumpkin patches and find your pumpkins, because that's what my daughters and I will be doing, and with my wife as well. So have a great weekend.